What is going on, Xbox and PC fans? So I have some really interesting kind of inside information today. You may have noticed I created a little background that says Inside Intel, and that is really the title of this video, and kind of the whole point is that I have had the opportunity recently by performing some ride-sharing services, which shall go unnamed for liability reasons, as well as I will keep the names of the individuals mentioned here confidential and anonymous for obvious reasons as well. But I did want to share with you guys that over the past few weeks, during CES 2020, and as recently as last night, this is being filmed on whatever day this is. I think it's January 16th, but 2020. I have been in discussions with people that work for Intel, giving them rides home from work, and people that are acquaintances with a lot of Intel's current employees. Talk a little bit about that at the end of the video, but I just wanted to let you guys know kind of what the overall demeanor of their employees has been, some of the things that they have mentioned to me and I've mentioned to them that we've come to agreement on or disagreement on, etc. And some of the things that they are genuinely concerned about for good reason, and some of the things, actually only one thing that one particular individual and one of her colleagues, or if not all of her colleagues, are very excited about. So I'll go ahead and kick it off here and tell you guys I've spoken with electrical engineers at Intel, and that was the first person that I really came in contact with that said it was okay to speak about him in this video. And his overall kind of disposition was that Intel is really struggling currently. Obviously, we had a lot of agreements with regard to their struggles with their process node, and he is just really kind of down right now. To be fair, when I go into the Intel parking lot, I live about 5 minutes away from Intel's Sacramento headquarters. And so you can just see it on the faces of people walking out of the building. Typically, they're just kind of downtrodden. Obviously, if any of you watched CES 2020, they had a very, very brief demonstration of products. They showed off some of the upcoming mobility parts, and were then basically overshadowed by AMD's keynote showing off their new mobility parts featuring Zen 2 and really boosted, highly, basically overclocked Vega and improved, I guess, somewhat architecturally Vega GPU, integrated GPUs into those Ryzen Mobile 4000 series parts. So we talked, about that, and he just said that, it's really just a very, very kind of dismal environment in there. And again, I'm able to see that just watching the people and kind of how they carry themselves coming out of the building. So that was the first person that I spoke to, and not a lot came out of that other than us simply agreeing that times weren't great and that there were some struggles with Intel. The next person that I spoke with was actually a prefabrication kind of tester. So what this person does, and I was intrigued by this as well, is they run before any silicon is printed, before the chips are actually made. This person ran essentially all through simulation, all through software simulation. They would run whatever architectural design for whatever integrated circuits that they were planning on building, whether that be a CPU or a GPU. In this case, this person was dealing with CPUs, and that person and I discussed, how things were going with the simulations with various architectures for CPUs on 10 nanometer and also on 14 nanometer. And he admitted that, there are still a lot of bugs, even in the prefabrication stages, when running these simulations of trying to put any desktop CPUs on to the 10 nanometer node. There are, they're not hitting the kind of yields that they need to, even in simulation. This is, again, before investing any money in trying to actually physically fabricate or manufacture these chips. They are not going to do that until they can get at least results that would predict a somewhat, viable return on their investment to actually manufacture. They call it sometimes tapping out or sampling of new chips. They have yet to even do that, as far as he's aware. Keep in mind that each of these employees that I spoke to said that they are very, very compartmentalized, and that they really only have access to information that is relevant to them. So this person could have been incorrect, and they very well could be, and I'm sure that they probably are very likely investing some money and attempting to physically tap out and manufacture desktop chips on 10 nanometer. Although, like this person mentioned, who actually works at Intel, who does the prefabrication testing, all via simulation, their results in those simulations would not dictate at least a financially sound decision to go ahead and attempt to manufacture those desktop chips on a 10 nanometer node at this time. So there's still too many bugs, too many unusable chips. They're getting just too many errors, even in the simulation, to justify printing those things out physically. So the next person that I spoke to, I only spoke to 4 that I actually told me that I could even mention him in this video, was a GPU architect. And I spoke with so the female, I spoke with her at length, and she was delightful. She was actually extremely, extremely excited about their upcoming GPU products, the XE architecture. She works with and knows Raj Kaduri personally. Said that he is just a very, very, very obviously intelligent individual, and that he's had some really good creative ability, and is obviously he's the kind of the lead over there now, taken from AMD, I believe a year and a half ago, roughly around there, and has been working for Intel ever since on this new architecture for them, which is going to be not only in their mobile parts, obviously in their consumer parts, and also in the enterprise solutions and all different power ranges. And I know that we've seen some kind of early sampling of cards with very limited, if no driver support whatsoever, kind of given out to developers or content creators, application, software developers, to kind of get a handle on what this architecture will be, so that they can start to begin to make their software work on it, and then obviously optimize for that further down the line. But she was again, totally realized the situation that Intel is in right now in terms of the competitive landscape, but she was very, very optimistic when it came to their new GPU products, and I think that's very exciting. I think that, come later this year, I'm very excited personally to have, three companies, AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel, all vying for our dollar with the dedicated graphics market. And from what I've seen from the mobility chips, performance there is good. It's certainly leaps and bounds better than it has been in the past, which has basically been non-usable for anything other than just a 2D desktop. You haven't been able to play any kind of games whatsoever on Intel chips previously, integrated graphics solutions. And so this is very, very exciting, not only for consumers, but I could tell on her face that there was genuine excitement there, and that she really, really felt that her and her colleagues had been doing all that they could, and that she felt that they had a very, very compelling product coming to market later on this year. So that is one thing that I thought was extremely positive, that I took away from these talks and conversations with their employees. And then just last night, I picked up another individual who was not an employee of Intel. At least I certainly hope he wasn't. I kind of talked over him for most of the ride. And the reason I did that is because when this individual got in the car, I saw two other people leaving, and I asked, how was your night? And he said, it's a good night. It's been good, but that he was seeing his friend off to Texas for a permanent move, and that it was his best friend and his wife, and that they were moving for occupational reasons. So, of course, I inquired what they did for a living, and he said that his best friend worked for Intel, and that he was leaving Intel. I did get this individual's name. He obviously requested that I did not let the audience know what his name was, but he works for the CPU department at Intel currently. Now, I believe he's already, parted ways with them. He is intended to leave and move to Texas and go to work for AMD here in the very near future. So when he told me that, I was extremely excited and started to just go off about, how AMD has become very competitive, obviously, with CPUs. And, I really did, like I said, overtalk him quite a bit. I was just so excited for the opportunity that his friend now has with AMD. And it was very exciting for me to hear that AMD is now pulling talent back away from Intel. And, for me, I was talking to him about, obviously some of the things that I thought Intel was burdened by, which was maintaining ownership of and really continuing to invest in their own first-party manufacturing fabrication plants, and that companies like AMD, like NVIDIA, like Apple, that may design, their own architectures for integrated circuits, whether they're GPUs, CPUs, SoCs, what have you, they can really choose to use whatever manufacturer has the best process at the time. So whether that is, TSMC, Global Foundries, which is kind of chosen to kind of hold back and not really press forward too aggressively. Certainly not to the extent of TSMC, who's being very aggressive right now with their roadmap in terms of node shrinks. But you've got companies out there like Samsung and other companies that potentially could offer superior production capabilities. And Intel is really just, they're heavily burdened by their investment in owning these manufacturing facilities and spending all this money on research and development to try to get this 10 nanometer node working. Again, the prefabrication engineer said that it wasn't even really feasible for desktop parts in the simulations that he was running at this time. So this person agreed, and we also spoke about some of the things that they're doing to kind of offset the loss of market share and the loss really of leadership position to AMD in the x86 CPU market. So obviously we talked about their upcoming line of dedicated GPUs, which is something that they can do to generate additional revenue. Certainly Intel is really the Goliath, and AMD at this point really is still the David. Very small company relative to Intel. But this person did agree that it only takes one good rock from a slingshot to hit a giant in a temple and take him down. And in my opinion, and I expressed this to him, if AMD is able to really get into stores, and that means getting in with system builders like Dell, HP, Lenovo, other companies that are putting systems out there for general consumers, not system builders. I think 9 out of 10 system builders last year, 2019, built their systems around AMD platforms, but really getting into the homes, the hearts, the minds, the mind share of general everyday consumers by being on store shelves, in your local electronic stores. I believe that will be a huge win for AMD and will really, really, really put pressure on Intel. I don't know if any of you have seen one of Linus's previous videos over at Linus Tech Tips. He mentioned that he was at CES and that one of the major system builders there did not show a single desktop or even laptop that had an Intel CPU in it. And normally that manufacturer really only shows Intel, or primarily shows Intel in all of their premier products, desktops, laptops, and they may have a few, in previous years, have a few, cheap looking kind of, bargain, if you will, AMD systems, kind of set off in some dirty back corner somewhere for folks to take a look at if they'd like to. But it seems like things really are swinging in AMD's favor here. And again, just to let you guys know with full transparency, what I've experienced giving, these kind of rides to Intel employees and kind of getting a peek behind the curtain, having discussions with people that, their friends are leaving the company to go to AMD and work on architectural designs for AMD's, obviously, upcoming Zen line of CPUs, maybe even what's beyond that. We already know that Zen 3 is essentially finished in terms of architecture. Zen 4, I think, is still being finalized. You've got Zen 5 that is in certainly being, every day is getting architectural enhancements and design further and further along in terms of finalizing design for those architectures as well. So really exciting times to hear that, again, AMD is pulling talent away from Intel. It is kind of disheartening to know that we're not going to see a whole lot of competition from Intel in the desktop space this year. With what I've heard, again, from the the engineer, from the pre-fabrication, tester, they really both believed that Intel isn't going to be able to offer desktop parts on 10 nanometer this year. So they can do what AMD did back with their bulldozer parts and crank up the frequencies as high as they can possibly get them. But they're going to consume a ton of power, put out a ton of heat. They're going to cost Intel a lot of money, taking up a lot of area, on a silicon wafer to print those things out. And, I just, it's unfortunate to hear, but I'm glad to have competition in the marketplace for x86 CPUs. That's fantastic for consumers. So I do hope that there are those Intel people, those brand loyalists, and I don't know why you would be a brand loyalist. I would just personally go with whatever product is best in terms of value and performance, and also has less security vulnerabilities and platform upgradability, etc. But for those people that don't know any better or that just choose to be brand loyalist, they'll continue to buy Intel products. And I think that's great because that makes AMD work even harder. And hopefully Intel will be able to kind of, press forward and get through this challenging time that they're having, getting down to a smaller node, whether it's 10 nanometer. I know they're also working on 7 nanometer, but get some kind of a new process node with their first party fabrication. Plants, manufacturing facilities, or if they need to, and I know I've heard rumors of this, actually having TSMC manufacture some of their chips for them just to stay competitive. So that would be fantastic. They'd be right back in the ballgame, in my opinion, if they were able to do that, to put some of their designs on 7 nanometer. They would be highly competitive with AMD, at least in their Zen 2 architecture. Even though I do believe it's superior in terms of IPC to Intel's current offerings, and certainly Zen 3 at the end of the year will be even greater, advantages there in terms of IPC, core counts, and just a whole lot of other things as well. So hoping that AMD and Intel can stay competitive in desktop market. Definitely am very excited for the upcoming mobile parts from both of these companies, as well as kind of a three-way vie for consumers' attention and dollars when it comes to dedicated GPU hardware in late 2020. If you watch my last video and you are aware that next generation consoles like the PS5, the Xbox Series X are coming out in late 2020, will be featuring Zen 2 architecture AMD CPUs, as well as RDNA 2.0 AMD GPUs. Those are going to be heavily optimized for out of necessity because the game developer community is going to have to optimize for where the money is, and the money is in console game sales. So that's going to translate over to further optimization on the desktop side, but I'm still very, very excited to see Ampere, whatever you're calling that, whatever the proper enunciation there is from NVIDIA, should be unveiled here just in a number of months. See how that will compete against RDNA 2.0 cards. Big Navi, whether I think that's going to be an RDNA 2.0 card. I do not believe they will have a Big Navi that's going to be printed on regular 7 nanometer first generation RDNA. I think they're going to save Big Navi for 7 nanometer plus and also RDNA 2.0 with hardware accelerated ray tracing, additional features, optimizations, etc. And whatever Intel is able to bring to the table, I'm really hoping that with all of their money, they are able to put together, and with all the talent they've acquired and taken from companies like AMD's graphics division and other people that work for them now, they're able to build a great, not only hardware solution for graphics, but also to support that through a phenomenal driver set and keep pace. I fully expect them to do that, but we shall see here in 2020. So I just wanted to give you guys the, the inside on Intel rather than the other way around. I know Intel is certainly not inside my box currently, but they could be next year with some graphics chips, and they may be, later in 2020 with their mobility chips, depending on how that competitive situation works out with Ryzen 4000 mobility parts and what they're able to offer here in late 2020. So we shall see. But again, the general mood, the kind of consensus that I got from all of their employees, people that are close to their employees, is that things are not good at Intel right now. Things are very, very challenging at Intel right now. There were, again, some really positive things said and hopefulness, genuine hopefulness that what they're putting forth out to consumers for graphics hardware will be competitive later on this year. And then you've got people that are literally leaving Intel and going to AMD. So it's an exciting time. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little peek behind the curtain that I've been able to kind of glean from my conversations. And I hope I don't get sued for this video by anybody, but at this point it'd kind of be like suing a rock. It's not going to get a whole lot out of me. I just want to take these monitors or the desk behind me. California, where I currently live, is very expensive and there's not a whole lot to give. So Intel, you can sue away if you want to, but I've mentioned no names, and I just am calling it like I see it. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you're all doing really well, and I have a lot more content to cover certainly coming up. So look forward to that. Subscribe if you want to. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you think, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Till then, peace out.